Not everything taken had been lost forever. Not everything buried had died. Some letters waited in darkness. Some chairs survived in sheds. Some love, put away because life demanded it, remained folded inside the years, yellowed perhaps, fragile perhaps, but legible. That night, Eliana wrote in the evidence book, "The letter that never arrived. Then, I am tired of silence deciding things." Then, after a long pause, some part of me did not stop. She slept badly. Truth, she discovered, could be exhausting too. But when the fear came in the night, it did not come alone. It came tenderness, with the ache of old love, and with the strange, painful beauty of a life becoming wider than illness. Next door, Julian lay awake long after midnight. On his bedside table was a copy of the letter that had never reached him. He had read it so many times, the words had begun to live in him. "If you want me to come with you, ask me." He turned onto his back and stared into the dark. Not yet, he told himself. Not because he did not love her, because he sensed she was still fragile, and he loved her enough to wait. Outside, between the two houses, the restored swing moved slightly, gently, in the cool night breeze. The following evening, Julian found her on the swing. The apple tree was full above her, leaves stirring in the soft air. The chair moved gently, barely at all. She still liked to keep one foot near the grass. Not because she had to now, but because gentleness had become part of how she loved herself. Julian came through the gate, carrying 2 mugs. "No need to drink it," he said. "I will," she said. He stopped. She smiled. "I said I will. I heard. You look startled." "I am adapting." He sat beside her. For a while they drank tea in silence. She looked at him. "Julian." "Yes?" He turned towards her. She held out her hand. He took it. High fingers closed around hers. Warm palm. Familiar fingers. Butterflies. Again. She laughed softly. "What?" he asked. "Butterflies," she said. "Good ones?" "Good ones." For a moment, neither spoke. The swing moved gently beneath them. Eliana looked out at the garden, the apple tree, the house, the path she had once crossed in terror, and now walked without counting. She thought of the taxi, the suitcase, the night she whispered to her mother, the first soup, the robin, Hannah's note, biscuits wait at her feet, the letter that waited, and her remarkable healing, that she finally made it to the finishing line. She did not feel fragile in the way she once had. Tender, yes. Changed, yes. But not fragile, not broken, simply alive. For so long she had been afraid to claim healing in case it vanished, afraid to say better in case worse overheard, afraid to hope too openly in case hope became a trap. Now she did not need to announce anything loudly. She simply knew. For months her body had become quiet, in the way a healed thing becomes quiet. Not empty, not untouched. Quiet because it no longer had to shout for survival. Julian lifted her hand and kissed it once, lightly. She did not pull away. She did not wonder whether she was too unwell for love. She was simply a woman sitting in the evening light, holding the hand of a man who had believed her before she could believe herself back into life. Sitting there under the apple tree, Eliana understood something about this chapter of her life. It began with the man who doubted her. It was held together with the help of the man who believed her and believed in her. And it would end with the woman who did not need to be believed and had come to believe in herself. They sat like that for a while, hand in hand beneath the apple tree, the swing moving only a little. Then Julian shifted. Eliana felt it immediately. The air changed. "What?" she asked. He looked suddenly nervous. That was rare enough to alarm her. "Julian?" He reached into his jacket pocket. Eliana's eyes widened. "Oh." He froze. "What?" "You have something in your pocket." "I do." "How long have you had something in your pocket?" He looked embarrassed. "A while." "How long is a while?" "That depends on one's philosophy of time." Julian Hart. "Several months." She stared at him. "Several months?" "I did not want to rush you." "You have been carrying a ring for several months?" "Not every day." She gave him a look. "Most days." Despite herself, she laughed. Then tears rushed up behind the laughter. Julian took out a small box. It was not new. She could see that immediately. The velvet was worn at the edges, deep blue, softened by years. "This was my mother's," he said. "Dad gave it to me when he decided my restraint was becoming a medical condition." Eliana laughed through tears. "That sounds like George." "It does." Julian slid carefully from the swing and lowered himself onto one knee. For one absurd second, Eliana thought of his knees and almost told him to get up. Then she saw his face. All the laughter in her quieted. The boy she had loved was there. The man he had become was there. The years between were there too, not erased, not wasted exactly, but gathered. Julian opened the box. The ring was delicate, a small central stone set in old gold, simple and warm, catching the last light of evening. "I had a speech," he said. "Of course you did." "It was better in the shed." "I'm sure." He smiled, but his eyes were wet. "Eliana, I loved you when I was too young to know how to protect love from pride. I lost you once through silence, and I have regretted it for most of my life. When you came home, I wanted to help you, without asking for anything. I wanted you safe, more than I wanted you mine." Her tears fell freely now. "But somewhere along the way," he continued, "watching you fight your way back, watching you write, rest, grieve, laugh, and begin again, I stopped thinking of you as someone life had returned to me and started seeing you as someone choosing her own way, riding the waves and emerging triumphant." His voice trembled. "I do not want to rescue you. I do not want to complete you. I want to walk beside you, at your pace, with room for quiet days, brave days, ordinary days, and whatever comes." Eliana pressed one hand to her heart. "Sometimes life gives us second chances," Julian said. "Not to go back and become who we were, but to love with everything we have learned since." He held up the ring. "Eliana, will you marry me?" For a moment she could not speak. She looked at him, at the ring, at the swing, at the apple tree heavy with fruit, at the house that had held her grief and given her back her life, at Julian, who had waited without making waiting a debt. Then, from next door, Hannah's window flew open. "Is this happening?" Julian closed his eyes. "Hannah, Hannah, sorry, emotional emergency." George's voice followed, fainter but clear. "Do not interrupt history. You're interrupting history too, Grandad." Biscuit barked. Eliana began laughing so hard the tears changed direction. Julian looked up at her, still on one knee, helplessly amused and deeply nervous. "Well?" he said. She leaned forward, cupped his face in both hands, and kissed him. The undeniable chemistry between them combusted. He deepened the kiss passionately, smoulderingly. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, because Hannah was absolutely listening, "Yes." The upstairs window erupted. "I knew it," George called. "Of course you did. You have been unbearable for months." Julian slipped the ring onto Eliana's finger. It fit. Eliana looked at the ring on her hand, not replacing the first, not erasing it. This ring belonged to a different woman, not before, not after. Here, after Hannah had run over in slippers to hug her, after George had kissed her cheek and told her she had made an excellent and historically satisfying decision, after Biscuit had attempted to eat the ribbon from the ring box, after tea had been made and mostly forgotten, after laughter had moved through the house like music, Eliana returned to the swing alone for one quiet moment. Julian stayed inside, giving her that. The garden was dark now, except for the small warm lights around the frame. She sat and listened to the night, to the muffled voices inside, to her own body, tired but not alarmed, to life moving around her without demanding that she prove she belonged in it. She thought of Sebastian then, not painfully, not sharply, softly. He was part of the story. He would always be part of it. The man who had doubted her, the man she once thought she would spend the rest of her life with, the man whose inability to hear her had taught her the cost of disbelief. But he was no longer the center. She wished him no harm. She no longer needed him to understand. That too was freedom. Above her the apple trees shifted in the evening breeze. One ripe fruit dropped somewhere in the grass with a soft, ordinary thud. Eliana smiled. For years she had thought healing meant returning to who she had been. Now she understood. Healing had returned her to life, not to the past. The woman she had been was not gone. She was in the laughter, the writing, the tenderness, the parts of Eliana that still loved warm kitchens, old songs, and flowers in blue glass bowls. But she was not alone inside her anymore. There was also the woman who had survived the nights, the woman who had left, the woman who still felt the void caused by the loss of her parents, but comforted herself with memories, the woman who had learned that sadness and freedom could sit at the same table. The woman who had come to love and believe in herself. The woman who had said yes, not because she needed saving, but because she was alive enough to choose love again. Eliana smiled quietly to herself. She stood slowly, one hand resting on the swing's smooth wooden arm. Then she walked towards the house. At the door, she turned back once. The swing moved gently in the evening breeze, empty now but not lonely. Restored wood, new chains, old memories, new vows, a new beginning, a place where what had been lost and what had been found could sit together without arguing. Eliana touched the ring on her finger and smiled again. The pill had changed her life forever, but it had not written the ending. She had, Eliana, the sole author of her destiny.